Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the greatest entitled parent stories we read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled parents you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that if this video gets 1,000 likes, she won't try to speak to anyone's manager for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And become an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. r/Entitled Parents. My boyfriend's entitled mother is the worst. When my boyfriend and I start dating, he warns me that his mother is notorious for twisting things to suit her point of view. I have no idea how serious he is until I start hanging out at their house regularly. When I offer to cook dinner one night, she asks if I think she is incapable of feeding her own kids. When she mentions hiring a babysitter, I offer to do it for free. She asks if I think she is looking for handouts. Finally, I just stop offering to do anything. One day, I am visiting my boyfriend and his family, and they decide to go on a hike. I have asthma, so I am a little worried, but I have my inhaler, and everyone assures me it is an easy hike. This is a lie. It is 6 miles up a mountain, and the humidity is so high. I have to stop to catch my breath several times. The last time I stop, my boyfriend goes ahead with his siblings and his mother stays behind with me. I am not happy about that arrangement to begin with, but when she starts talking, it gets worse. Entitled Mom. Why do you do that? Me. Do what? Do whatever you think other people want you to do. I just try to be helpful. By undermining my parenting? How is that helpful? Undermining? Offering to cook, doing the dishes, brushing my daughter's hair. You're a suck-up, and I don't like it. Me, still confused. Oh, okay. I wasn't trying to suck up, just be helpful. Well, you weren't, and I don't like your attitude either. My attitude? Yes, when you disagree with me, you're welcome to have your own opinion, but you should keep it to yourself. I don't. What did I say? You openly disagree with me in front of my children, and then they think it's okay to disagree with me too. But I don't understand. When did I disagree with you? It doesn't matter what it was about. I didn't mean to undermine you or disagree with you. Can you give me an example so I can work on it? I shouldn't have to. It's so simple. Don't disagree with me. Do you know what my son said the other day? No. He told me you two went out for sushi and miso soup. Yeah? Miso soup has soy. Soy will make him like boys. I told him he couldn't eat soy products because it would do this, and he told me that you said that wasn't true. Well, maybe it's not. That's not the point. Wait, you use soy sauce all the time? See? You're just arguing with me again. I'm annoyed and sarcastic. Okay, so don't be helpful and don't think for myself. Anything else? Don't be such a jerk. I was stunned. I can't even. Really? Did you just call me that? Entitled Mom shrugs. If it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. Me. Okay, I'm going back to the bottom now. I knew you couldn't do this hike. Pity too, because the view from the top is beautiful. Nope, can't do it. I might have my own thoughts and decide to shove someone off a cliff. I went back down and, as we all drove together, waited for them to return. While I was gone, the mother told my boyfriend about our conversation and how rude I was the whole time. I told him my side of the story, and he rolled his eyes. He told me to just ignore her antics. We were together for a few more months, but we eventually broke up because I just couldn't stand his mother anymore. Her tirades kept getting worse and worse, and she soon started attacking my family, even though she had never even met them, for raising me the way they did. He hates me now, of course, because I didn't break up with him for something he did. I felt awful for doing it, but I couldn't see myself spending the rest of my life listening to her talk to me like that. Next, we've got entitled mom costs her cousin $4,000 in motorcycle repairs. I actually have an entitled cousin. Her name's not Karen, and she doesn't have the hairstyle, but she does have the attitude. About 20 years ago, when I was barely an adult, yeah, I'm getting on in age now, but I still look young, thankfully, she let her son play with my motorcycle while I was not at the house. It was an antique Kawasaki Z1 from the 70s that I had restored myself. The kid was 10 years old and not exactly very smart. This bike weighed 500 pounds and had custom paint and a handmade custom fairing. So, what does the kid do? Pops the kickstand up and drops the bike. And the bike stayed on its side for hours till I got home. By the time I got home, the oil had gotten out of the clutch case and coated the pistons. This meant I had to tear the engine down, clean the pistons and cylinders, and buy brand new expensive gaskets for the cylinder head. On top of that, the battery was absolutely ruined because it wasn't an AGM battery. It wasn't an AGM battery because the bike wasn't intended to be used for off-road use where it could wind up on its side. The worst part of it, I had spent months designing, modeling, and fabricating a replica of Craig Vetter's mystery ship fairing for the bike. The fiberglass had cracked from the weight of the bike and the hard drop. My cousin didn't seem to understand why leaving it on its side was catastrophic. Regarding the fairing, she said, "What's the big deal? It's a rickety old bike. Just get a new plastic cover and it's good." I tried to explain to her that it was fiberglass, not plastic, and that now I have to spend weeks sculpting a whole new clay model to make a new fairing because the clay used to make the form for the old one was already resculpted to make something else. I tried to start the bike to show her that now it won't start, and she had seen it running earlier that day. Her response, "Well, if you made it yourself, you can make a new one. It won't cost you anything since you do it yourself, and it won't start because it's so old. Get a new one. The new models look much better anyway." As if I wanted a Ninja or a Vulcan, or could afford them, or could afford a brand new police edition of the KZ1000, the only bike from the Z1 KZ era still being made at the time. Yeah, I can make it myself, but time is money, and even back then, my time was worth a lot of money. There was easily $2,400 worth of labor alone that went into making that fairing. Now I have to spend that much time all over again, and I can't even get started on it until I finish the replica Mad Max fairing for a friend's 77 Kawasaki KZ1000. That doesn't even cover the labor of painting it, nor the several $100s in materials, decals, and paint. The labor for cleaning the engine after the oil got everywhere it wasn't supposed to be on the inside was easily worth another $800 of labor, plus $200 for the new gasket. Also, another $150 for a new battery, because I used a high-capacity battery since the starter was upgraded to produce 20 amps at idle, bringing it more in line with Kawasaki's police motorcycles, since I was going to put a lot of fancy electronics on it. I had to make the upgraded starter too. Then she had the nerve to tell me that I ought to get a boyfriend so he can do these things for me, because a girl and girls shouldn't work on motorcycles, never mind ride them. My cousin is persona non grata now, and she isn't allowed to attend any more family functions on my side of the family after the family found out how much money she cost me. All in all, her son messing around with my bike and her encouraging him to do that cost me about $4,000, and that's before adjusting for inflation. If she had asked, I'd have let him sit on it, but only with my supervision. Instead, she had to go behind my back and ruin the bike in the process. And this, people, is why bikers have a reputation for violence when people touch their bikes. They put a lot of money and effort into their bikes, and it takes just one little oops to cost them that money and effort all over again. People don't go around touching other people's cars without permission. Why do they feel entitled to go touching and sitting on bikes, which are much more delicate without permission. Next we've got, trust me, I'm almost a doctor. Back when I was a uni student, I worked evenings as the shift lead in a DVD rental store. Yes, it was a while ago. One of my favorite coworkers was studying aeronautical engineering, and I was studying a Bachelor of Medicine/Bachelor of Surgery, so the rocket science and neurosurgery jokes were plentiful, and it was a wonderful way to shut down the occasional jerk who treated retail workers like second-class idiots. But I digress. We were located in a fairly quiet suburb and open until midnight. It was around 11:30 p.m. on a very quiet, rainy evening, and I was sorting shelves and beginning to close when I heard a commotion outside. It was a young couple having a doozy of an argument, and I could hear them coming up the street from a mile away. Bored, curious, and mentally grabbing popcorn, I drift to the front of the store and start adjusting stock there, trying not to be too obvious with my rubbernecking. As I got there, I saw the guy turn in frustration and punch his fist straight through the passenger window of a parked car. He pulled his arm back and started screaming at the sight of blood. His girlfriend was also screaming and standing there with a shocked expression on her face. The guy looks up and down the street and sees the lights on in our video store, the only place still open, and ran into the store. He was standing at the front counter, hand clamped over his wrist, face as white as a sheet, and unable to say anything other than, "Ah! Ah! Ah!" I told my off-sider to call 000, and while she was on the phone, I pulled out a chair, grabbed the first aid kit, and tried to administer first aid, but he was having none of it. His girlfriend was hovering around being annoying, blubbering, and hanging off his good arm. The guy, "You're just a video store person. What do you know?" His girlfriend, "Oh my God, baby, I'm so sorry. Please don't die, baby, please." Me, "I'm a registered first aid officer, and I can apply a bandage to your wrist to slow the bleeding until the ambulance officers arrive." His girlfriend, "Stay with me, baby. Don't go." The guy, "Ugh, I'm dying. Please help me." Girlfriend, "I'll never do it again. I promise. I love you." "I love you too. I'm sorry. I thought that..." At this stage, it's clear to me that they're both drunk. This guy has an injury of unknown severity, but he's bleeding all over my counter, so I want to look at it, and they're too involved in apologizing to each other to pay any attention to me. Me yelling, "Quiet!" Two shocked faces look at me. I pull out my first aid and med student ID cards, hand them to the guy, and say, "Trust me, I'm almost a doctor." The guy started to laugh weakly and handed over his wrist. The girlfriend is still sobbing behind him, begging him not to leave her. I quickly bandaged him up, satisfied that it was a superficial injury only and nothing life-threatening, and had him sit to wait for the ambulance officers to arrive. It wasn't fun mopping up afterwards, but 2 days later, I arrived at work to find an enormous bunch of yellow roses for me with a card that read, "Thanks for saving my life." Next we've got, Karen doesn't understand how libraries work. During my school holidays, I worked for a while in the library of a combined elementary and middle school. This particular school is very near the town's library. Our books and theirs are all clearly labeled with the respective institution names. However, we frequently get students returning the town library's books to us and vice versa. The school's policy is to not help them return it to the town library so that they will learn not to make this mistake. I'm used to it, as they're kids, and they usually get it after a simple explanation. And then you get this. Parent, "My son got a call from the library saying they still owe books, but he returned them all last week." The school does not call to chase for books. We have a more relaxed policy and don't even fine for overdue books. The mention of the call is enough for me, but most customers aren't satisfied until you actually show them the record. Me, "Okay, let me check the system." Pulls up the record. "Ma'am, the system shows that he doesn't have any books on loan." "Yes, they're from the town library." "Oh, in that case, you need to call them to check with them." "But he returned it. I was waiting downstairs. He told me he was going to run to the library and drop them in the book drop. Points to our book drop. He returned the town library's books here? Yes. So why are there still books on his account? Ma'am, our system is different from the town library system. He cannot return their books here or vice versa. Yes, he can. My son said he can. Sorry, ma'am. He may put their books into our book drop, but if we scan it, it won't be found in our system record. We will see that it's not one of ours and put it aside for the student to come back to collect it. Why didn't you inform us? We do not have any record of which student borrowed the book. But he borrowed it. It should show his name. Me, patiently. But our system is different from the town libraries. It will not show the name of the person who borrowed it. The parent keeps this up for some time. I'm trying my best to explain it patiently, but she doesn't get it. The elementary school students understand this better than she does. I end up using the dumbed-down parallel I give to the younger students. It's like if you go to McDonald's. You can't buy a Burger King burger there because they are different stores. You must have the book on the shelf. You can check the shelf and see that he did return it. I check the cupboard where we keep the town library's books that have ended up in our book drop, but we do not have the title that the parent mentioned. Sorry, ma'am, we don't have it. Are you sure he returned it here? Yes, he did. Why won't you believe me? Points insistently at our book drop. I'll get him to come and prove it. Okay, you can ask him to come by. Would you believe it? Some days later, the parent comes back again. This time, she has complained to the school office, who apparently was finally able to get through to her that our library systems are different. My son returned the town library's books here. Do you have them? Me, checking to see if they have been found over the last few days. Yes, here you go. The person who called me said there's a fine for overdue books. You'll have to check with the town library. At the school's library, we don't implement a fine for late returns. But it's not fair. We shouldn't have to pay a fine. Sorry, I have no control over that. I have a feeling I know what's coming. Sure enough, she delivers. No, I shouldn't have to pay. My son returned it here. Points petulantly to our book drop. How can you charge me when I returned it here? I facepalm. I mean, I can excuse a kid for not being able to tell the difference, but this is an adult in her 40s. Next we've got, Entitled Mom Doesn't Understand Why I Won't Give My Dog to Her Daughter. Backstory. About 5 years ago, my family rescued a golden retriever named Maya. She was my responsibility, so my family refers to her as my dog, and she came into my life when I was dealing with a death in the family. Needless to say, she helped me a lot and is very special to me. I moved to university, and I come back during the summer. Neighbors next door are a family of 3, mom and dad who are always at work, and their 6-year-old daughter. This summer, the mom asked me if I could babysit her daughter while she was at work, and she paid me in exchange. Daughter, calling her Kay, grew up very attached to Maya, who loves most kids, and they played together almost constantly whenever she came over. After summer ended, Mom came to pick up Kay one last time, and Kay burst into tears and started hugging Maya, saying she didn't want to leave her. I calmly explained that Maya was my dog, and I was like her mommy, so she would be sad if she had to leave her mom. Kay calmed down and understood after the conversation, but Mom was not having it, and she started to cause a scene. Entitled Mom. Really? Can't you see she loves that dog? She promises to take care of it. Kay sees how upset her mom is, so she goes back to crying and grabbing Maya. Me. I'm sure she does, but she is still my dog. That's not really fair. You're not even here most of the time. Doesn't the dog deserve an owner who will spend all of their time with her? Me. Doesn't change the fact that she's my dog. My family is still here to take care of her, and they love her very much. I'm not going to give you my dog. Well, it's not really giving her away, is it? How much have I paid you? That definitely covers the cost of buying the dog. At this point, I really wanted to scream in her face. She paid me to watch her kid, not to buy my dog. I didn't want to blow up in front of Kay because she's a sweet girl who probably only continued to cry because her mom escalated the situation and confused her. So I separated Maya from Kay and told her, the dog, to go inside. I told Mom to leave me and my dog alone and to find a new babysitter next summer. And later on, she texted my mom saying I was a foul-mouthed girl. Never cussed in front of her 6-year-old kid, who ruined the life of a 6-year-old girl. Entitled Mom tells me that because her kid likes my car, it belongs to him. This happened a couple of months ago, but I figured I should share. So for a little backstory, I had just gotten a new job and I decided to reward myself with a new car. I enjoy cars just about as much as anybody, and so I chose a brand new Volkswagen Golf GTI. My neighbors had moved in relatively recently, but I hadn't really came in contact with them. Our cast. We've got me, we've got Entitled Mom, and Entitled Kid. Now for the story. So I just got home from work. I go inside and change out of my work clothes because I don't really feel like wearing a suit after hours. I go back downstairs and get on my computer to look at the news. A quick glance out the window shows me the door of my car is wide open. I usually don't lock my car until I go to bed, but that has now changed because of this happening. So I rush outside to see what the deal is, and I see Entitled Kid playing inside my car. I try to ask him in a kind tone, "Excuse me, what are you doing in my car?"
"I'm playing, and this is my car."
"I'm sorry, what makes you think that?"
"Because I like it."
"Well, where are your parents?" Entitled Kid points to neighbor's house. "Okay, can you bring them over here?" Entitled Kid runs home. A couple minutes later, he comes back with a woman about a foot shorter than me. I'm 6'2", and obviously pretty young. Entitled Mom. "Why did you threaten my son?" Me, trying to stay calm. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I did not threaten your son, but he was in my car, and I asked as nicely as I could for him to get out." "Well, clearly you aren't a nice person, because you threatened him." Again, I did not threaten your son. He believes that my car that I bought with my money belongs to him. And? If he likes it, why can't he have it? Because it costs over $28,000. That's not that much. She drives a Mercedes GLS. I have worked very hard for this car, and just because it isn't as expensive as your car doesn't mean I can just give it away to a 6-year-old. Well, you still threatened my son. I'm sorry, but I did not. I will call the police if you don't let my son have that car. You can do that, but it won't help you. Then give me the car. At this point, I just go inside and lock my car because I can't deal with the stupidity. After about a minute, I see Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid walking away. So hopefully, that is the end of that. Next we've got Bad Dad lets his kid wreck displays at the dollar store. I had my first shift in probably weeks today because someone else called in sick and I was the only person to answer their phone. It wasn't too bad. I didn't mind. I had a pretty awful week, and having to be retail happy made me actually happy. Several of my favorite coworkers working today helped with that too. So it's almost Easter. Story time. The holiday aisle is 1/3 empty, and it's just destroyed when I walk in. There were a whole bunch of extra people in today for whatever reason, so everyone who wasn't on cash was cleaning and facing. I took the Easter aisle because I wanted to see what was there. There's small kids in my family. If I can get some tips over to the old EB on cheap chocolate, I will. I spent a solid 2 hours cleaning and running stuff back, a lot of which had nowhere to go because it was the last item of its type. Okay, totally good. It's decent and looks presentable. Go help out at cash for half an hour, have some more returns from customers needing 3 of the same bunny basket to keep the little ones happy and all, and a few more last one things to find homes for. I go back and do that, straighten up the candy some more as it's ransacked. I'm doing my minimum wage thing. Guy comes in with his spawn. They're looking up and down the meager Easter offerings left. One kid takes off way down to where the summer stuff is trickling in, while the other is touching every basket. Dad sort of meanders through, looking at stuff and making a few comments. Literally 5 seconds after they get in the aisle, the little girl has knocked 5 baskets on the floor. I am standing less than 5 feet away. Dad is right beside her, saying nothing. Son is messing around with stickers about mid-aisle. Son and daughter go racing behind me as I'm putting more stuff back up and go dodging around these baskets I'm trying to pick up and starts yanking down all of the bunny ear headbands. Like a good quarter of all those headbands come down and make it to the floor and the candy shelf below. And again, I am standing right there with my apron and blatantly putting stuff away. And Dad does nothing, says nothing. Kids give no hoots. I just literally stood there so dumbfounded. I put the basket down and walked away. I could not believe this blatant piggy behavior happening right beside me. I went a few aisles over until I saw them move somewhere else before going back to fix it all. Literally, what the heck? If I had been feeling a little snappier and quick-witted, I would have said something. Heck, if I hadn't been coming from about a solid week of moping around and wondering if I'd been fired, I would have said something. Christmas wasn't even this bad. I swear, everyone up here is stir-crazy because of the awful winter ending, and they go and take out all that energy being a disaster in my dang store. Next we've got Thinking Outside the Box by Leaving Them Outside. I work at an entertainment facility that often hosts kids' birthday parties. We offer party rooms and activities, but we do not provide childcare and never have. Whenever a customer makes a reservation, it's clearly stated on the form they sign that kids under 13 must be accompanied by at least one adult at all times. One Friday afternoon, when we are slammed with customers, a mother comes up to me in our lobby area with her son, who's about 9 or 10. Entitled Mom.
We're here for the birthday party.
Me. Welcome. That's great. That party actually starts in about 1 hour. So?
Oh, I know. I still have to go pick up my daughter, so I'll leave my son here for now.
I gesture to our lobby, which is open to the public and currently full of people coming and going every which way, trying to help her notice. When that doesn't work, I try to think of the most professional way to make this woman realize that she would be crazy to leave her son there alone. Oh, I'm sorry, but all of our employees are busy helping other customers right now. There would be no one available to watch your son.
Oh, that's fine.
Me, thinking she finally came to her senses.
He doesn't need watching.
Me, shocked, and wondering how I can make this more obvious without offending her. Well, it's really up to your discretion, ma'am, but we are not certified to provide childcare, and none of us are trained to mother angrily.
You don't get it. You don't have to do anything. I'll just leave him here and he'll be fine.
Me. Ultimately, the decision is yours, but we care very much about everyone's safety at our company, and I just don't feel it would be a good idea.
Ugh, fine.
She grabs her embarrassed son by the hand and literally drags him out the door. Thinking the problem has been resolved, I go back to helping our many other customers until my coworker arrives for the start of her shift about 20 minutes later. Keep in mind, it is January and literally freezing outside. Coworker. Hey, did you know there's a boy standing in front of our building?
What?
Oh no. Yeah, I just let him borrow my phone because he wanted to call his mom and ask her why she hadn't come back yet. Oh my gosh. Is he okay? Yeah, I asked him if he wanted to come and wait inside, and he said he wasn't allowed to. What's going on? What should I do? You're not going to believe this. I tell her the story. So I guess when I told the mom she shouldn't leave her son inside, she took me literally and left him outside. My coworker kept an eye on him and made sure he was okay, despite our being short-staffed and not technically allowed to watch other people's kids. His mom finally came back, another 30 minutes later. She glared daggers at all of us and continued to shoot us dirty looks all afternoon every time we had to walk past where she was sitting. Fortunately, the boy did have a fun time at his friend's birthday party. I hope things got better for him. Since then, we have put up more signs to notify customers that adult supervision is required at all times. Next, we've got caution. This story will make you hungry. At this time, I am 15 years old, and my family is preparing to spend the weekend in the Santa Clara area, coming from El Dorado, for a father and daughter's joint bar mitzvah. As usual, I wake up early and am showered and dressed before anyone else. My mom comes out of her room while I'm getting a box of cereal out to have breakfast. It's before 8 a.m. Mom, don't eat. We're going to stop for breakfast before we head out of town. I like the idea of getting a Belgian waffle more than eating cold cereal. Me, okay, sure. However, it takes my family a long time to get ready. My mother and sister particularly enjoy lingering in the shower for quite a while. I end up going to my room and switching on my PS2 for a while. Finally, we leave after 10:15. I notice that when we drive into town, we immediately get onto the highway. Me, wait, weren't we going to stop for breakfast? Mom, oh, no way. We left way too late for that. Besides, your sister and your father already ate something. Me, well, you could have said something so I didn't have to go hungry. Sorry. Obviously doesn't care that much. We'll stop for something around lunchtime. It's out of my control, so I try to distract myself from the hunger pains for the next couple of hours until it is past noon. Me, hey, are we going to stop for lunch anytime soon? Sister, I'm not hungry. Mom, neither am I. If we stopped for lunch, it would just be for you. I'm fine with that. Dad, we can just go through a drive-thru for him. Mom, I want to make sure we get checked into the hotel so we don't have to rush to the ceremony. So let's just head straight to the hotel. No amount of complaining or compromising makes a difference. It doesn't matter that we will be at the hotel in an hour and the ceremony won't happen for another 3 hours after that. My mom is dead set against stopping for lunch. We arrive at the hotel and get checked in with plenty of time before the ceremony. Far more time than what would have been necessary to get a meal. It's around 1:30 by this time, and I still haven't eaten. Me, how about I order mini pizza from room service? Mom, no way. The ceremony is in a few hours, and they are serving dinner. You can wait until then. That's still hours away, and I'm starving. I haven't eaten all day. Dad, honey, we can let him order something small from room service. Mom, as if we are making an absurdly ridiculous request. No, we are not ordering him room service. They are serving prime rib for dinner, and he's not going to eat it if he has food now. No food for me. The ceremony starts at 4 p.m., but it's at a synagogue. Dinner isn't until later at the reception. I sit through the ceremony while listening to my stomach trying to digest itself. We are dismissed back to the hotel before the reception, and we get to the hall by 7 p.m. and dinner is served. For some reason, my family isn't seated together. My parents are with their friends, my sister is with the daughter being bar mitzvahed and her friends, and I'm with some adults I've never met before. Of course, I'm at one of the last tables served dinner. I see the other tables digging into their prime rib and green beans. Finally, my table gets our turn, and the waitress plops down in front of me. The fattest slice of beef I've ever seen. There are hardly any traces of meat visible. Me, excuse me, this is basically a lump of fat. Could I get another piece? Waitress, sorry, this is all that we have. We made the exact number of plates that there are guests. Rushes away before I can say anything else. So I eat my green beans and pick out what little pieces of meat I can find, while the other people at the table jokingly keep asking me if I'm enjoying my prime fat Later, dessert is served. And of course, they run out of chocolate cake before they get to me, so I don't get any dessert either. Later, after the reception, Mom, I bet you feel better now that you finally got some food. Me, not really. The meat I got was almost all fat, so I didn't eat anything besides my green beans. Mom, seriously? You should have told us or our friends. They would have gotten you a better piece. They said they were all out. Anyway, can I please order room service now? Sorry, the kitchen is closed by now. You'll have to wait for breakfast. Nothing else to do but go to bed hungry. We wake up on Sunday morning and I get showered and dressed before everyone else because I'm in a hurry to finally get my first proper meal since Friday night. Me, I'm starving. Can I go downstairs and get breakfast while you guys get ready? Mom, no, you can't. You will wait for us so we can eat as a family. And wait I do. Yet again, for more than 2 hours, while they take their time to have some coffee, take long showers, get dressed, and apply makeup. Then, I have to wait until my mom and aunt make sure my grandparents, staying in another room in the hotel, are up and ready to go. Eventually, we make our way downstairs together. Most of the family elects to go to the breakfast buffet to get breakfast quickly. I decide to order a Belgian waffle. It takes a long time to get here. My grandparents have already received and finished their eggs and toast, and the rest of them have had a couple of rounds at the buffet. Mom, I told you that you should have gone to the buffet. Me, I would have if I had known they were going to take so long. My waffle does eventually come out. I pour on some syrup and cut into it, only for waffle batter to pour out like a lava flow. Me, incredibly frustrated and hungry. My waffle is completely raw. My parents are in hysterics, laughing at how hard a time I've been having finding food this weekend. I send back the waffle and tell them I just want to eat at the buffet. I took my plate and got my first helping of random breakfast foods available and start scarfing down. I get back up to get my next course, happy to finally be able to eat a full meal. Mom, that's enough. Everyone else is done eating and they don't want to wait for you. Me, my frustration starts rising again. No way. I'll be done when I'm done. Dad, honey, just let him eat. Mom chuckles as she again remembers what a miserable time I've been having. All right. I went back to the buffet and had a total of 4 plates. And our final story of the day. Father picks up my dog and tries to take her. I know there's a lot of these entitled parent tries to take my dog stories, and I have no idea why this is such a thing. But it happened to me too, so I wanted to share my version. We've got me, we've got my dear husband, we've got entitled father and kid. There's a local park that my husband and I like to take our dog to on the weekends. We're actually quite friendly with most of the people there because a lot of them are there every weekend like us. My dog likes people and likes other dogs, so she always has a super good time. She's not very good with kids though, and we assume it's because she's not used to them. We are child-free. Anyway, this was a few months ago. We were at the dog park like usual, and my girl was romping around. After a little while, I noticed a man and his son that I had never seen before in the park. It's an enclosed park, so you can let your dogs off the leash, so they definitely came in on purpose. They didn't have a dog with them that I could see, but I figured maybe their dog was just running around somewhere. I also noticed that they seemed to be going up to people in the park and talking to each of them, but I figured they were just making conversation and didn't think much of it. After a few minutes, they got over to my husband and me. After a few pleasantries, the father started with his pitch. Entitled Father. The reason we stopped by is Kid here, I can't remember what the boy's name was, wants a dog, and we promised to get him one for his birthday, so we thought we'd come talk to the dog owners and see what breeds they recommend. Me. Oh, okay. I thought this was a weird thing to do, because you can just Google it, but whatever. Meanwhile, my husband is throwing the tennis ball with our dog behind me and not paying much attention. Entitled Kid.
I like that one, Daddy,
pointing at our dog.
Is that your dog?
Yup. I won't write everything out, but at this point, he starts to ask me questions like how old she is she healthy, how much does she eat, does she behave, etc. I answered his questions because I thought he was just going to look for a similar dog or the same breed. Also, my husband is still oblivious behind us.
Well, she couldn't have cost you much. Would you take, say, $20 for her?
I don't say anything. At this point, my husband kind of hears our conversation and comes over. Husband.
Sorry, our dog isn't for sale. But come on, you've seen how much my kid likes her. Don't you guys want her out of your way so you can start having kids of your own?
My head really wants to explode at that comment, but I don't even bother telling him we're child-free because that's none of his business. Me. The answer is no. I suggest you go to a shelter. There are plenty of dogs waiting for a home there.
Well, fine. Have it your way.
I will, because it's my dog. Kid.
Daddy, can I at least play with the puppy before I leave?
Entitled Dad looks at us. My husband and I are a little hesitant because, like we said, our dog is not that used to kids, and we just know this dad is the type to sue if anything goes wrong. But our dog was kind of hanging around and sniffing at the kid, but she still looked calm and happy. And since they seemed to back down, we didn't want to punish the kid because the dad was being an entitled jerk. Me. Just for a few minutes. So husband gave the kid our tennis ball, and they started playing. It was fine for a few minutes, and husband and I went to sit on a bench, but we kept an eye on them. We kind of talked for a bit about how weird the dad was before my husband suddenly stops mid-sentence. Husband. What's he doing? I look over, and the dad has picked our dog up and is walking towards the exit of the dog park. Me. No way. We immediately get up and head over, and husband tells the man to put the dog down. Luckily, he does. He was clearly hoping to sneak out of the park before we noticed, and she goes bouncing away happy as can be. Husband tells the man to not ever touch our dog again. I wish I could explain to you how furious my husband looked. It takes a lot for him to get angry, but our dog is his baby. He's the one who wanted her. I was hesitant at first, though I wouldn't trade her for anything now. He's also the one who primarily raised and trained her. I work a lot, and his schedule is more flexible than mine. Luckily, it didn't come to any major scuffle where we had to call the police or anything. The dad just muttered something about us being selfish. Yeah, because not just giving you our dog is us being selfish. The logic of entitled people. And then they left the park. The kid looked disappointed, but he didn't say much. I don't have much blame for the kid in this scenario. I think he just genuinely wanted a dog, and his dad decided to go about it the most entitled and jerkiest way possible. I've not seen them back at the park since, but I have talked to a few other regulars from there, and they all said yes, the dad did ask them if they'd be willing to sell their dog for $20. Of course, they said no. Also, I've had a few people tell me that we should have reported him or something. I realized that in hindsight, but at the time I was surprised by the dad's behavior. I never thought he would actually pick her up and try to steal her. I know, I give people too much credit sometimes. And my husband and I were both a little shaken up, because what if we hadn't seen him in time and she was just gone? I never did see him again though, but if I did, I would have reported him or got his license plate number or something. Karen takes my job I had literally just been promoted to. Warning now, if you're looking for a happy ending, turn back now. Also mobile. Buckle up, people. This is a long one. Big thanks for my manager for giving me permission to share this story as a form to let off steam. For context, I worked in this job part-time for 6 years. I loved that place, and the only part I could complain about is the customer that made me lose faith in humanity and my coworker, Karen. Hair and all. Though she has the voice of a goblin. No joke. Though Karen wasn't actually that bad until she was given a little bit of power. A couple months ago, Karen received a sudden promotion that no one had expected to customer service management. not real title, but pretty much the equivalent. We'll abbreviate to CSM. There was a different HR issue that had occurred at the job, which left the position vacant. The acting manager at the time, our real manager was on long-term disability at the time, relevant later in the story, was pressured by head office to fill the position immediately. Thus, Karen came to power. I was upset by the sudden promotion, as I hadn't even been given the opportunity to even interview. But my supervisor explained to me that Karen's new position as CSM meant that she would be handling all the customers, while I could actually get my own personal work done. He also informed me that a brand new position, Technical Service Manager, was being written up for our location, a full-time position with absolutely no interactions with any customers, while dealing with the complicated machinery and programs that we deal with. This was my dream position. He told me to hang on for 3 months for our regular manager to return from leave, and I'll be given the interview for the position. So during those 3 months, Karen's newfound power began to manifest, bossing the part-timers around, taking extra long breaks, and passing rude comments to me like, "I just want you to be as successful as I am. You'll get the position next time," and "just try to do better." I regret now not recording these interactions, but at the time, I was simply looking forward to the full-time position coming up. So August comes, and my regular manager returns to the job. 2 days later, I am brought into her office for a meeting. Manager tells me that the interview was really just a formality, and she was extremely proud on how much I had supported the business in her absence, citing that my 2 supervisors had nothing but praise for me. She shook my hand and gave me a big hug when I started crying. My dream job. I could do what I loved at the business without dealing with the customers. Karen, however, had different plans. When the manager announces to the staff of my new position, we were all close there. Karen huffed. "I thought that was the position I was hired for," she whined. Our supervisor, who was confused by this, informed her, No, Karen. You were promoted specifically for the CSM. That is your title. OP's title is Technical Services Manager." Karen huffed and went into the bathroom. About an hour later, after everyone had finished congratulating, I was called into the manager's office. I figured there was a paper or something I forgot to sign and went back immediately. To my surprise, however, manager was sitting there with Karen. Manager:
OP, could you take a seat, please? We have something to discuss.
Confused, I took a seat out in the hallway and brought it into the office, sitting down. The manager then continued. By the way she spoke, I could tell she didn't want to tell me what had just happened, but was forced to. Manager: OP, as you know, several months ago, Karen was hired suddenly as CSM, right? Me: Yeah, of course. She won't let me forget about it. Yeah, probably not the right thing to say, but I was on cloud 9 at the time, and when I get excited, my ADHD shows. Manager: Well, Karen told me that she was under the understanding that she had been working as a TSM, not CSM. I look at Karen and shrug. I don't understand what the issue is. We had talked after her promotion, and she told me that the acting manager at the time specifically selected her, as she didn't think I would do well as CSM. She wanted to make sure there was no hard feelings between us, which there wasn't at the time. Karen: That's not true. You confronted me, asking why I got the position and not him. The manager just sighs.
Look, OP, just for now, you two have to share the CSM and TSM side of things until we get this sorted out. I'm going to get the original contract you signed from the acting manager.
So that happened roughly a month ago. But unfortunately, it wasn't as simple as getting and reading the paperwork. You see, the paperwork that the acting manager had Karen sign was the incorrect paperwork. In fact, it was the paperwork for a completely different department that actually had a TSM role already. Because of this, HR had to get involved, and we just got the ruling about 2 weeks ago. As the paperwork was vague, it could stand to reason that it could be interpreted as TSM role for my department. The manager was instructed to grant Karen the position I was hired for, and I was given the option to transfer to a different location entirely to take up the TSM position there, which was completely out of the question as I don't have a vehicle. Accept the CSM position from Karen or return to being part-time and allow the company to hire someone new for CSM. I asked why Karen couldn't be given the TSM position at the other location as she had a vehicle, but apparently her ex worked there and it was an extremely messy breakup. It pained me, but I took the CSM job as it was still an increase in pay, even though I don't enjoy dealing with customers. My real manager and my supervisor are extremely sympathetic for what happened, my manager even giving me another hug when I broke out crying. She, bless her heart, advised me to approach the labor board in regards to this, as she also knew this was unfair to me, but it seems as though because of the paperwork, nothing is really going to come from that avenue. And my cousin, who is a secretary to an attorney, seems to agree. I received a written apology from the acting manager about the situation she put me in, which included a $50 gift card to Tim Hortons. A nice gesture, but doesn't really make up for it. I know it was most likely an honest mistake, but still. As for Karen, everyone now hates her. She has been throwing her position and power around for the past 2 weeks and basically making everyone feel uncomfortable. She used to be well respected in our store, but after what she had done to me, everyone has now been actively avoiding her. The DM of our workplace D&D group has informed me she is no longer welcome to his house. My, technically, former supervisor forgets to ask her what she wants from Tim Hortons whenever he takes orders, and 2 days ago, her lunch was thrown out by mistake when a coworker cleaned out the fridge. As for me, well, I'm hanging on. Honestly, it is clear that Karen is not right for the position, as she has been making many mistakes. The customers are annoying me to no ends, and I'm finding it difficult to handle the stress. But with my manager understanding what's happening, she's been helping me out as much as possible at the front counter. My hope is that Karen will end up doing something that will get herself fired, as she has made a lot of enemies and has been screwing up a lot. I don't think I need any actual legal advice or anything, as Karen seems to be doing that quite well on her own. I'm feeling a little better now that I've got this out of my system. Today had been an especially stressful day with customers, and I honestly felt I needed to vent some of the frustration from this situation I've gotten myself into. If you've taken the time to read this whole thing, thanks. Brief edit. The secretary of the attorney is my cousin, not my friend. Next we've got, Entitled Woman Wants Me to Chance My Safety Because She is Impatient. Some background information. This happened last year, near the end of October. I was a junior in high school, now a senior. I live in a small city in Virginia. In the morning, when I'm driving to school, I have to pass by an elementary school that gets heavy traffic from buses and people dropping off their kids, meaning it may take a while before I can pull out onto the road. The crossing guards assigned to the school pay no attention to the road me and others come out of. Also, keep in mind that I was a new driver at the time. My car is a 2009 Hummer H3 that I absolutely adore, but that doesn't really matter in regard to this situation. Now, onto the story. I was sitting at the entrance to my road and waiting to pull out onto the state route. Of course, since none of the crossing guards pay attention to my road, they don't stop traffic so we can pull out and be on our way, meaning we have to wait for an opening to pull out. I'm looking left and right to find any possible openings for me to pull out onto the state route. I looked right, cars coming. Then I looked left and nearly jumped when I saw a middle-aged woman standing at my driver's side window who had gotten out of her car behind me for whatever reason. Cautiously, I rolled the window down to see what the issue was.
Me.
Is everything okay, ma'am?
Her. Are you having car problems?
No. I'm just waiting until it's safe to pull out.
Her. Oh, honey, you need to go. You're holding up traffic. If there's an accident, that's what insurance is for.
My jaw dropped open after she said that. I was completely livid inside, but I took a deep breath and nodded, acting like she was right. Okay, sorry. She walked back to her car, and I rolled the window up while wondering, who the heck does she think she is? Yeah, you're right, lady. I do have insurance, but I also don't want to get into ridiculous accidents that are easily avoided. If people are coming past my road, I'm waiting until they come by, no matter how long it takes. I'm not going to jeopardize my or others' safety just so you can be satisfied. I get that you have somewhere you need to be, but I care more about being safe when I'm driving a motor vehicle than taking risks to get to class on time. I'd rather show up late to school than be in the hospital because of something that could have been avoided. Part of the reason why this had me so angry was because I actually got into my first car accident at that exact same place 2 months prior to this happening. It was a very minor accident with minimal damage, and the person at fault couldn't be determined. So me and the other person just decided to drop the whole thing and go on about our lives. It still scared me a lot though, and it's made me a very cautious and careful driver. Next we've got no good deed goes unpunished. This happened today, and I'm still on shock someone could be this entitled to someone like my mom. Some backstory. My mom is a bit of a hippie, electric car driving, CSA using, zero waster, Habitat for Humanity volunteering, farmers market organizing hippie, and had me as a teen. She got married to my stepdad, and they lived in an off-the-grid house, beautiful place, on a lake in New England. A couple of years ago, my stepdad passed away, and my mom has been really lonely, so she's been helping out single moms in between houses in her coach house. The average stay is a week or two, although on occasion she rents it during the winter. She doesn't charge the short-term boarders for anything. I try to get out there for a few months a year with the kids to spend time with her, and she always has our place beautifully set up, but won't have boarders there because we're visiting en masse. My oldest, 3 months, also has asthma, so dust and mold are triggers for him. It's so bad that we had to move houses, move to a smaller town, and I had to quit my job so I could stay home because he gets dangerously sick fast. I'll be visiting this weekend, so she wanted the place cleared and cleaned by Monday. So early in September, my mom was at the CSA and overheard a very young single mom with a new baby living out of her car asking for help purchasing food because, insert sob story here, and she won't have a place until mid-September. This girl presents herself as a teenager who wants to save the environment and has dropped out of school and was kicked out of her house because she got pregnant. My mom, being the bleeding heart she is, tells them that they could stay with her for no charge until they could move into their new place mid-September. Well, to my mom's surprise, and honestly no one else's, this girl is a complete mess. She leaves all of her clothes all over the lawn in the rain, covers spills with carpets, etc. She didn't want to use the high-efficiency heater and bought an electric without telling my mom and left all the windows open every day. So instead of generating energy, my mom had to pay hundreds in electricity for 3 weeks. My mom found something sweet for the baby, but the girl only wanted organic cotton or wool touching her little infant, and rather than give it back, she used it as a rag. This is the quality of person she is. And then it gets worse. This girl started avoiding my mom, so my mom sent emails asking her move-in date to the new place because we're coming to visit for October. Finally, after getting a hold of her dad, from the contact info she gave my mom, he tells my mom that she isn't 17 like she's let on, but 22, and has been like this her whole life. She actually broke the lease in her last place because she didn't like the air, and canceled the lease to the place she was supposed to move into for some other complete BS reason and didn't tell my mom, and had the option to move in with any of her 4 older siblings but refused to because she didn't like their location/personality/rules. So finally, this woman child responds to my mom and says she'll be out on Wednesday so she could start cleaning then. Wednesday rolls around and my mom goes into the guest house and her stuff is all still there. On top of that, because she left the windows open, mold has set in and she was using the electric heater on high while she was gone next to a pile of dirty clothes and sheets. The bathroom was utterly stained, covered in mold and trashed. So my mom starts to bleach the bathroom and this utter piece of human garbage comes home and starts accusing my mom of trying to hurt them. Because bleach is worse than mold? She then tells her that she'll be out on Friday. Friday rolls around, so my mom goes back in there. The girl still has some stuff in there, but her coach house is completely trashed. My mom needs to redo some of the floor, replace a mattress, repaint, and get in professional cleaners to clean up the biohazard that the girl has created. We were supposed to be down last Saturday, but had to move the date to this weekend because of the mold and chemicals used to clean. But what really upsets my mom is the amount of garbage generated by this girl. In 3 weeks, she refused to separate any of her garbage and generated a dumpster of trash. My mom sent her an email calling her out for her hypocrisy, only to have a response that she, my mom, was a narcissist who was trying to help her only to feel better about herself and was violating her personal space. She was so entitled that she has put out a smear campaign against my mom in the community. My mom, who honestly has done more for her community than anyone can imagine, often anonymously, who was widowed at 50, who couldn't do something mean if her life depended on it. And believe me, I was not an easy kid. I just got off the phone with my mom and I'm completely shocked. She had sent a picture and she had used disposable diapers all over the kitchen and in the fridge and pantry. Spilled shakes were all over the counter and floor. The repairs are looking like a few grand plus cleaning. I wish there was a happy ending to this story, but I'll be going down this weekend if there are any updates. Sorry if this came out as a rant, but I'm just livid. Next we've got Entitled Parent Wants Money for Shoes He Didn't Bring Back because they were labeled wrong. Yesterday, I was out shopping for shoes at a department store. I was in there when it opened and already saw an employee not having a good start of the day. For starters, she was a stockroom employee. I know since I shop there often and have chatted with her. She is really nice and tends to compliment everyone with almost every breath she takes. One can tell when she is stressed since she insults herself out loud more, which she was currently doing, as before she could open the registers, customers were coming in. I was just looking at shoes, not wanting to overwhelm the poor thing. She finally got the registers open when this surly-looking man came in, waving a receipt in her face. "Give me my money back. It's wrong," he snapped at her with a heavy accent. She smiled and took the receipt. "All right, let me check. What is the issue?" she said in her sweet tone. But she didn't compliment him. Yep, she wasn't happy with him. "The shoes are too much." "Let me check." She punches in some numbers into a device. "No, that is correct." "It is not correct. They are wrong. Different color shoes shouldn't be different prices. I checked the shoes. They were not labeled correctly." "They were labeled correctly. I did it myself, so I would know. However, I get your frustration and your confusion. I don't get why it's like that either. But as you can see, they are correctly priced." She showed him the device with the prices. "No, they are wrong." He then grabs her and pulls her along to the shoes. "They were here, and they were labeled wrong. You have to fix this." "I am sorry, but you are incorrect. They are labeled correctly. As you said, they were different colors. Different colors have different prices on sales. I don't even know why. It is a frustration even I deal with. Oh, how I wish things were more even. But alas, they are." She was wiggling her wrist free from him as she talked. He kept at this for about 20 minutes until the worker said,
It seems I am unable to help you, sir. Please allow me to get someone who can assist you better."
The man grunted agreement. The worker then got on the phone to call her manager.
"I have this customer. I have explained to him this price thing with his receipt several times already, and he still doesn't get it. I am getting very frustrated. Can you please help me, darling?" "Oh, thank you."
Really, she just calls people darling without meaning anything romantic. It is a good gauge to tell if she doesn't like you, though. She returned to the man after she hung up with her manager and said,
"Okay, my manager is coming down to assist you soon. I hope that is helpful."
The man grunted at her again. After that, the worker went to being able to help other customers that were coming. Each customer was greeted with her usual, very flirtatious, yet complimenting ways of speaking. The manager came over and started to talk with the man from before. He started to shout about how things were not labeled right, how the service was terrible, and how he wanted the sales employees whom helped him fired for being incompetent. He pointed at the girl and then talked about another. "I need to see the shoes in question. I can't fire my employees as I don't know who served you. And she is a stockroom employee, not a sales associate. She was doing the best she could to help you. That is why she called me." And after more yelling, the man was given a $10 gift card and he left in a huff. The girl was helping me with shoes.
"Hey, what got that man upset?"
I asked her.
"Oh, I do apologize about that, darling. I wish I could tell you all about it. However, wouldn't that be rude of me? Now, are these shoes the ones you wanted? Let me know of anything I can help you with, as I would love to make customers smile,"
she said, and handed me the shoes I asked for. Neighbor tells Gramps he should mind his own business. That advice costs neighbor most of his yard and a car. Gramps had just moved into a retirement park with a lot that backed up to county land that was a nature preserve. His backyard was basically non-existent, but he didn't mind as long as he got to look out over the preserve. However, he did marvel at how his next-door neighbor's backyard extended a good 8 feet past his, giving neighbor a nice space back there. Gramps tried to be friendly with all his new neighbors, exchanging phone numbers and the like, and one day he noticed the next-door neighbor was putting down expensive pavers that extended from his back door all the way to the old fence posts that designated the preserve boundary. Gramps watched the neighbor yank the 3 rickety fence posts out of the ground and move them back an extra 2 feet into the preserve before pounding them back in. Then started to clear the land, intending to gain himself more area for his pavers. Gramps used to work for the National Park Services as a young lad, so he thought he had better warn his neighbor of the consequences of his actions. So he heads out back for a little chat. Neighbor is immediately defensive, and before Gramps says much, neighbor tells him, "You're new here. I've been here for 10 years. And to mind your own dang business." Gramps decides not to press the issue. Nothing happens that year, but the following year, when most of the park emptied out to head north for the summer, the county comes by to check on the preserve. Gramps notices them going back and forth behind his neighbor's house, so the workers are pulling out maps and taking photos and making phone calls, and soon more guys show up. Turns out, neighbor has moved the posts several times over the years, and in reality, his backyard is supposed to be even smaller than Gramps' backyard. To make it worse, neighbor put pavers in the back specifically to park both his golf cart and a cherry red sports car back there for the summer. So the county will have to move them before they can do anything else. They tape a notice to the front door and leave. Gramps goes over to read it, and it states that neighbor was in violation of encroaching onto protected lands. He has 30 days to move his car, tear up the pavers, and pay a fine of $11,000 because of damage to endangered species who inhabit the protected lands, as well as trespassing fees. Failure to do so within 30 days will result in golf cart and car being towed and impounded. Pavers will be dug up and carted off at neighbor's expense, and the fine will be increased for every additional day past the deadline. 30 days comes and goes. So a week after that, Gramps has quite the show, as first the car and cart were towed,
Pavers were dug up and hauled off, and the old fence posts and ropes were replaced with metal posts embedded into buried cement bases connected by steel cables. The whole process took several weeks to finish, but the preserve looked a lot more legit when they were done. A few solar cameras were installed so the county could monitor the wildlife and encroachers remotely. Meanwhile, more notices were taped to the front door of neighbor's house. By November, the snowbirds were flooding back into the park, including Neighbor. That was Gramps' second show of the summer, as Neighbor reads all the notices, digging down until he reads the first one, then runs out back and starts screaming up a storm before running back to his car to dig out his cell phone so he can call the county to find out where his car and golf cart were. Gramps stays indoors to avoid the guy as he is frantically trying to unload his car, turn on his water and electricity, get the AC and the toilets going, and all the while trying to get someone at county to pick up the phone and give him some answers. He finally gets a live person and proceeds to scream at them while on speakerphone about his car and cart. So the call keeps getting kicked to other people because who wants to help a screamer? Basically, Neighbor is told to come to the county office to get this straightened out. 3 days later, Neighbor catches Gramps outside and asks if he was here when the county stole his car and destroyed his backyard. Gramps said he was, and Neighbor says,
Well, why didn't you call me when you saw them putting notices on my door? You had my number up north.
Gramps said he had thought about doing that, but figured Neighbor would prefer him to mind his own dang business, so he decided against it. Next we've got, I know the rules. Do you? A little backstory. This happened years ago while I was working in retail. I had been at this place for 3 years, was cross-trained in every department, had never had a sick day, and was always available to cover shifts whenever they called me. The important thing to say is that we were also unionized. I would soon be getting married and moving across the country, so being the good employee I was, I gave my store manager my termination notice a month before my last day instead of just 2 weeks, so he would have plenty of time to hire someone new. Here's the good part. A few days after I turned in my notice, I broke my foot in an act of stupidity. 3 avulsion fractures. They couldn't cast it. Doctor gave me some pain meds and a note saying I could continue to work as a cashier as long as I had a stool or something so I could help keep the weight off of my foot. The next day, I grabbed my cane and walked to work with my note. I explained the situation to my supervisor and union rep, and they pull a bar stool from the furniture section and put it in my cash booth. I spend the day working without a problem. The next day, my store manager sees me sitting on the stool and calls me into his office. I go in and he wants to know why I have a stool. The conversation goes roughly as follows. Manager: Why are you sitting down while on shift? Me: Because I broke my foot, and the doctor says I cannot be standing on it all day. I have the note and the union's approval. Manager looks over the note and notices the cane beside my chair. I can't let you keep the stool. If I did, we would have to make accommodations for everyone who got injured outside of working hours. Plus, it doesn't look professional to have you sitting at the front of the store. Now, I know he isn't allowed to do that, and that I could have taken this up with the union and won the case. But with only 3 weeks left with the company, I would be lucky to have it resolved before I left. So I get a bright idea. Okay, I will make you a deal instead of bringing this to the union. I will give up the stool, but in return, you need to make sure that every shift I work from now on is as the garden center cashier. My manager quickly agrees and thanks me for being understanding. He walks with me out to the garden center and explains to the current cashier that I will be taking over for the rest of the month. Now, being unionized is not always a great thing, but if you know the rules, you can get away with a lot without being fired. With my union, the key was to do exactly what was in your job description, so long as it didn't put you, your coworkers, or the company at risk. Since most of us liked our jobs and respected the store owner, not the manager, We always went above and beyond, but I was on my way out, and after my talk with manager, I no longer cared. A few days later, manager comes out to let the supervisor know that a shipment of flowers will be arriving sometime today. He apparently decided to check up on me and was completely speechless when he saw me. There I was, sitting on my register's counter, reading a book. Manager:
What on earth are you doing?
Me: waiting for the next customer to come up while taking the weight off of my foot.
Why? You know I could fire you for doing this, right?
My job is to be a cashier, which I am doing whenever someone comes up. There are no additional duties like cleaning or stocking for the garden center cashier, so between customers, I am taking the weight off my foot as per my doctor's note, minus the stool, of course.
I could still fire you for reading on the sales floor.
Please do. Since I have never received a warning or been written up, that would mean you were firing me for a first offense, which is not sufficient cause for the union. That would mean you would owe me 5 weeks severance, my unclaimed vacation time, and the pay I would miss between now and my final day. Now, you could also spend the next 2 weeks trying to catch me reading. That way you could issue me the required 3 warnings, followed by the required 3 write-ups. But that would eat up a lot of your time, and I am pretty sure I could have someone inside call to warn me if they see you coming this way. At this point, a man with a full cart of bags and dirt starts heading my way, and I hop off the register onto my good foot and hop around the register so I can serve him. Manager never came to see me again. Next we've got, you're gonna call the client and tell them exactly why? Sure thing. I work for a software company that started in the mid-80s. Since its inception, they've insisted on obtaining a system information sheet for every machine something gets installed on. They thought it would protect them from people installing on other machines since they have no other verification system of how many licenses are in use. They also attempt to charge a full hour's rate for the few minutes of time it takes to install one of our software packages. I understand their wariness of us getting stuck doing 150 workstations, but the average number of licenses at a client site is 2. The client pays a regular maintenance fee for support and product updates and are usually very angry when they get a new computer, need one of our programs installed, and then are told they have to fill out paperwork and still have their IT person/group perform the install. It's somewhat difficult and requires knowledge of networking and databases, and it's a frequent case where an IT person will charge them to mess it up and then will charge them to fix it. It's happened more than once that the IT person or a desperate client trying to do it on their own has messed it up so badly that there was a catastrophic, unrecoverable data loss. It's cost us more than a few clients, but the idea that someone might get one over on us by stealing a license is so abhorrent that management remains entrenched in the policy. We end up spending days going back and forth with clients to get pointless paperwork filled out to avoid doing 3 minutes of work. I'm not exaggerating. The software line I support takes under 5 minutes to install, even with the database/network complexity. And it's our poor receptionist that gets the brunt of it from the clients. No matter how many times our more technically inclined staff bring up things like terminal services, machine imaging, the fact that our passwords are stored in plain text, internet published environments, and any number of ways clients can easily get around per-seat licensing restrictions, they're not having it. So it happened again yesterday, where a client called in expecting a quick install on her machine, and Erin, the receptionist, had to explain and send over the paperwork. An irate Hannah, the client, called 4 more times over the next couple of days trying to get a different answer. She was eventually escalated to Dan in management, who said he had come down and speak with us about it. But what he told us was to follow procedure. I tried to discuss it with him, and a few of the old-timers butted in. Laura from another team yelled loudly that I don't have the authority to change policy, which made Dan cower. Me: why are we spending 2 days and 3 people's time to avoid doing 3 minutes worth of work? Laura: it's not 3 minutes, and it's not your job to ask. It's your job to do what you're told. Is your name on the building? Erin's doing her job. Why aren't you doing yours? Me to Dan. How much time do we waste doing this? How many times has this policy saved us money? Laura. Sherry caught someone using a license without paying at X Town. Michelle found a workstation hiding in an office at Y Town. Ray found an install left on an old workstation in Z Town. Silence, with Laura smirking and folded arms, thinking she's won. Me. So, 3 times in 30 years. And all the while, we've been arguing with clients, filing paperwork, combing through paperwork when someone wants to move a workstation, moving files between buildings, having people retrieve paper files from archives. Dan. What do you suggest we do? Me. Handle installs as part of the maintenance fee, switch licensing models, or develop an automated license restriction method in the software. We look stupid right now, and the clients don't understand why they have to do this. Laura. Well, I understand that we don't want people stealing from us perfectly well, and you're going to do your job and call the client and tell them exactly why, and we're going to stand here and listen to you do it. So, I have to call the client on speaker so the whole support floor can see me be broken and do what I'm told for Laura's entertainment, despite the fact that it's extremely disruptive to anyone who is on a call. Client Hannah explains her frustration with Erin and says she sent system information sheets back in 2017. I explained that they needed to be filled out for every new workstation and that Erin is just doing her job. Hannah asked why a tech company is demanding paperwork for licenses when every other company just has a key or is internet-based. So I told her exactly why, loudly while making eye contact with Laura. Because we have technologically inept decision makers insisting on informing a time-consuming licensing policy despite the fact that all the times it's proven useful can be counted on a shop teacher's bad hand. Edit. We'll add reactions, and I'm sorry for a double cliffhanger, but I just got told I have to go to a meeting. Gee, I wonder what it's about. Edit 2. Okay, so as I said, the guy across from me burst out laughing so hard that the clients heard it. I looked at him and missed Laura's initial reaction, and by the time I looked back, she actually just appeared hurt. Dan was looking at me with wide eyes and his mouth open, shaking his head, then turned and followed Laura. I then received an email to attend a meeting right before end of business. At the meeting, a smug-looking Laura was waiting for me in a chair across from Dan's desk. Dan. OP, we can't have people deliberately embarrassing other employees in front of everyone. Me. I agree. Laura's attempt to publicly degrade me was in really poor taste and highly unprofessional. Laura, now mouth agape and vaulting up on the arms of the chair and yelling at Dan. You're not gonna do anything about this? Dan, exhaling with puffed cheeks and resting his head on one hand, avoiding eye contact. We can't be embarrassing each other here. We have to work together. We all have to do our jobs. Thanks, guys. And I walked out. Next we've got, insult me for having white hair? Have fun covering my shifts. This happened about 2 years ago. I worked for a very popular supermarket chain in Australia. I had been shunted there after their sister company went belly up. Now, I love dyeing my hair crazy colors. It's a quirk. It makes me feel more confident in myself, and as someone with social anxiety, it was a great pick-me-up when I was feeling down. When I first got transferred there, I had blue dreadlocks, and we had a male manager. There was never any issues with my hair or dress standards, and I took pride in my work and worked hard. About a year after, we got a new store manager. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah had very clear-cut ideas about how her store should be run, and importantly, how her employees should look. At this stage, I had taken my dreads out and just had short purple hair. According to the employee guidelines, employees should appear professional and hygienic at all times. No mention of hair color whatsoever. However, the phrase professional is open to interpretation by management. You can see where this is going. It began as passing comments on my hair such as, "Wow, that's bright," etc. But as other employees began coloring their hair, Sarah sent out a memo that no unnatural colors were allowed. I was very sad. Colored hair was part of my identity and gave me the confidence I needed to interact with 200 plus customers a day. I decided I would bleach my hair snow white, so I did. Now, if any of you have done this before, you would know you need to use purple shampoo to counterbalance that brassy, bleach yellow tone to keep it white. This is a fine balancing act. Don't leave the shampoo in long enough and you have yellow hair still, but too long and your hair can get tingled pastel purple. Well, on a few occasions, I left it in a little too long and my hair was the slightest shade of purple, not even pastel, only just off a light gray color. Well, that was all Sarah needed to gun it for me, going as far as to threaten to send me home without pay. As this was going on, I had become friendly with the bottle store next to the supermarket, under the same parent company, but a different chain of command. I would cover their staff's breaks, and instead of standing around like the others do, I would face up the store and help out. Well, the manager had noticed my efforts and poached me. The best part? Because they had a different chain of command and a different interpretation of the employee guidelines, I was allowed to have colored hair again. I immediately took up the offer, and the night before my first shift there, set about making my hair a rainbow. I get in there, my new manager loves my hair, my customers are raving about it, asking how I got it so bright, what brand of dye, etc. Well, good old Sarah spots my beacon of a head from across the supermarket and beelines it straight for me. But I was ready for her. I printed the employee guidelines and called our HR team just to get further clarification that I was correct in my interpretation. I had customers in the store, but this didn't stop her from trying to tear into me. Sarah,
You can't have hair like that.
me, hands her the paperwork. Actually, I can. My manager has no problem with my hair, and the guidelines say nothing about hair color.
You are going to make my employees think that is acceptable.
When your employees mention my hair, I tell them straight out that it is not allowed in your store.
This isn't the last of it. I'm going to HR about this.
My new manager later told me that Sarah had gone over her head to try to have me relocated to another store and went to her area manager and complained to him about me. She was told in no uncertain terms that my hair color is not against the rules, that she is out of line to even reprimand me in the first place, and that if she does not cease her harassment, she would have to take a permanent vacation. Over the next year, I would change my hair to some other crazy color combination at least weekly. I loved the look on her face every time I walked past. My mental health has gotten so much better since leaving that toxic work environment. I feel bad for my ex-coworkers who still live under her tyranny though. Next we've got, that's fine, I'll stop working at 40 hours. About 10 years ago, I was working as a software deployment engineer for the UK branch of a Brazilian company, owned by a US company. There were 3 of us for the entire world, all based in the UK. Our roles comprised of flying somewhere on or for a Monday, building configuration and labs in the local US company office, training their staff, updating code if things didn't work, etc. Before deploying their first site for them while they watched. They would do the second while you shadowed, and then they'd do the third with you at the hotel, but on call. A typical country engagement was 3 to 6 months because you'd be bouncing between anywhere between 4 countries at a time. Each week was a different one. Enter new HR manager for Europe. Each week, we would blast a timesheet to UK HR to allow them to send it to Brazil, who would bill the US company. Quickly, the new HR manager notices that each of us is clocking in around 30 hours of overtime a week. Simply because the contract stated the moment we left our houses on a Monday or Sunday that we were now classed as working because of the international travel. We enjoyed this clause because time and a half for 30 hours a week was lovely. But that did mean that the further from the UK we were, the quicker we hit the UK limit of 40 hours per week. My record was hitting 40 hours by lunchtime Tuesday due to spending 27 hours flying to Sydney. As I said, the HR manager didn't like that we were going so far over the 40-hour limit in both our contracts and in the UK.
I sat down with her and explained that it was just the nature of the job, that we didn't mind because we got overtime for it. She wasn't happy, talking about process and that they wouldn't be paying overtime for overhours from X date. Throughout the meeting, she was abrasive and rude, like she was talking to a child. Not the highest billed technician resource in the company. Naturally, quite annoyed by this, but very little we could do. The overtime wasn't in our contracts, as we were salaried employees, and it was a perk that we were given. I grabbed the other two in a quick huddle, and we formulated a plan. We brief our respective project managers, employees of the US company, and they each agree. The next Monday, we each flew to our countries. Naturally, I hit the 40-hour cap quickest, and at mid-morning, Wednesday, with only half of the urgent work completed for the week, I'd tell the project manager I'll pick him and our file maintenance resource when they want before jumping in the car and heading back to the hotel. I text A and B and let them know we are a go. Later on that day, A does the same. All the while, this has been escalated both via my project manager and the local company MD back at the US head office, and this back to my Brazil head office and down to our UK office. By Thursday morning my time, I get an email saying they won't pay overtime, but will give time off in lieu. Quick text-based huddle, and the other two are happy with that. I'd prefer the overtime, but if I get an additional 2 days of paid holiday a week to my holiday balance, then I'll take it. We agree, go back to working. HR manager is suitably browbeaten for her mistake, and then even more so when she realizes that time off in lieu has to be taken in a month cycle, meaning each of us had around a week off paid per month. All the crazy moms shop at Target. This happened this morning. My eyes are still rolling. Just for some backstory, my Target is attached to the local mall. There is a Starbucks in the Target right in between the street exit and the mall exit. I was in the middle of shopping and wanted some coffee. I had my reusable cup, my lid, and my straw in my purse. I ordered my Trenta iced tea with 4 pumps of hazelnut and 2%. It's a pretty simple order and they never get it wrong. This time, they got it wrong and I got vanilla instead of hazelnut. No biggie, I hate vanilla, so I asked them to remake it. The barista is super nice about it and felt bad, though it was just a simple mistake. I went to hand her my cup and this Magikarp of a person grabs it from me. I didn't even really see her. You know when you recognize there's another person next to you, but you don't look at them or even register them? So I was totally confused. She was a mom, late 30s maybe, with a bored-looking daughter.
If you don't want it, my daughter will drink it.
She has this stupidly smug look on her face.
No, she won't.
Give me my dang cup back.
Don't cuss at me.
Don't steal my crap. I have no filter for Magikarps. I take it back from her and some coffee splashed on my jeans. No big deal. I hand it to the barista and the mom leaves, and I assumed that was the end. When I got my cup back with the right coffee in it, I threw a little extra tip for the drama and went to walk away. This entitled mom is back with her embarrassed kid and Target asset protection.
This is the brat right here.
She points at me and steps forward, almost shouting. Target AP. Ma'am, you need to step back. We can discuss this. I'm looking at them like a cow looks at an oncoming train because... What? She told them I stole her daughter's cup and her coffee. She even started crying that I called her names and threatened her, and said that I knew what car she drove. She was bawling by the time one of the guys took her away from the Starbucks, pointing at my coffee, stained leg, and claiming it was proof. One of the guys started to question me as 3 passerbys pulled out their dang phones. I said, "This is my cup. I came in from the mall with it. I'm on camera." I'm also on camera when she ripped the coffee from my hands and tried to tell me I had to give it to her daughter. When I took it back, it spilled on me. Go check your cameras before anything else, please. I'll wait. She started screaming that I was a liar and that I needed to go to jail and that I am a delinquent because of my tattoos. It's an alligator on my arm. I rolled my eyes so hard, I saw the future. You are not a good person.
and you are not setting a good example for your kid. You're embarrassing yourself. Shut up. Not mature, but oh well. After the baristas and AP confirmed my story, management let me go and apologized. I don't know what happened to Magikarp, but she's probably still flopping around in the parking lot. Next we've got Karen pushes me out of the line when I'm incapable of walking. So, context. I was born with a badly shaped spine, but I didn't know about it until I was 19 or so. Spent a year with the pain because of my own entitled mother, until at 20 I was able to get surgery to remove the bad bone. Context 2. University was taken over by a group of students, and each week there was a voting to see if the university is free or still under student control. The spine, when it was in its worst state, turned the left side of my body completely unusable. Even moving my leg was painful. Now to the story. Since my career is the smallest in the uni, 50 students, and with the lowest amount of votes, 2, its line was mixed with the line of the laws/medicine careers, so it was like 300 people at best. I was there, waiting patiently and playing Pokemon in my phone when my leg starts to become stiff. I deal with it until I can't walk properly. I try to deal with it until I fall over because of the pain. Some people make fun of me, and I stand up. The line gets divided in two, guys and girls. I'm in my line, holding the tears because of the pain and looking for a painkiller in my backpack. There are none. Suddenly, the lines become one again, and with my slow speed, I end up at the end of the line. I'm now in tears and unable to walk. A friendly girl asks me if I'm okay and if I want to vote immediately. I say yes, and alarm sounds. Karen enters the battle. Then comes this woman with a 3-year-old goblin screaming as to why I get a fast pass while she, a poor single mother, doesn't. Some people ally with her and I get pushed to the floor. Some jerk opens my backpack, I don't know why, and he sees the medical envelope with my radiographies and an analysis. I had a doctor appointment that night. Some medicine students took a look and realized I was with a serious problem and shouldn't even stand up. Heck, I shouldn't even walk to take care of the problem. I was left alone and was able to vote. As to be expected, no one said sorry, and that Karen just glared daggers at me. And if anyone asks why I didn't have a wheelchair or a cane, they are expensive, and my own mother refused for me to use one. So yeah, it was a crappy year. Edit. To people worried, this happened years ago, and I already had my surgery to repair my spine. I can walk fine now. Thanks for your worries. Next we've got Entitled Uncle tries to tell me to know my place in my own house. So, I unfortunately have a lot of these types of stories because my mom has 5 brothers and sisters, and 4 of them are so entitled. They think anybody younger than them owes them respect because they're your elder, despite the fact that they're rude to everybody and act like they're superior. In fact, the only sane people in the family are my mom, who is the youngest of the 6, and one of my uncles, who is the eldest of the 6. Kind of funny that the middle children pull the "I'm your elder" excuse the most. This specific story is about one of my uncles who is an all-around jerk. He's been in jail for most of his life and thinks that gives him some sort of experience or something on the outside world, despite not being in it for a long time. He also still treats us adult nieces and nephews like we're still children, and constantly talks down to us because, once again, he's our elder, so we better listen and do whatever he says, even if he's in the wrong. Well, one day, he came over knocking on the door angry at my father for some stupid reason. He hates my father because he has invisible disabilities, which to my uncle don't exist. He's just being lazy, apparently. So he'll constantly find reasons to be angry at my dad. And I was holding on to my little dog because I didn't want him to accidentally get in the way in fear of my uncle kicking him. Anyway, when my father answered the door, he immediately walks into our house and starts cussing about something or other. I didn't hear him at first. Then he locks eyes on me and proceeds to yell at me, calling me fat for not getting up and opening the door for him, and talks crap about me being a bum and whatnot, despite the fact I work 2 jobs and live in a house, and he is a homeless mess who couch jumps from person to person, even though he has a job and could afford a place if he wanted, eats their food, and rearranges their homes to how he wants it without asking, and expects you to say thank you to him. The rest is what I vaguely remember being said, entitled Uncle.
You're just a fatty, just sitting there not doing anything.
Me.
How dare you come into my house and talk to me like that? Don't you cuss at me. You better know your place.
I can talk to you however I want. This isn't your house. You come in here disrespecting my family and disrespecting me, telling me to know my place. I know my place. Do you know yours? I pay my rent. I work my 2 jobs and contribute to this household so I can say whatever I want. That is my place. He proceeds to continue cussing and walks past me. I don't fully hear what he says because I'm shaking with anger. He grabs his laundry from the laundry room, and last thing I remember him saying is calling me a name, and I just yell back at him as the door slams shut behind him. My mom heard everything and told him he was no longer welcome at our house, and told my dad to lock every part of the house when we leave because previously, if we weren't home but one of the doors was accidentally left unlocked, either in the front or back, he would just walk right on in without calling or asking first. Honestly, good riddance to him. I don't miss his presence one bit. I'm sorry if this seemed a mess. I'm on mobile, and I'm still getting the hang of telling my stories in a text format. Next we've got, we were never married, and they are not his kids. Long and on mobile. I am so sorry. This happened about 4 years ago, and it still gets to me with many different emotions happening after I got married and started a family. Well, for background, it started in high school. I was in sophomore year, about 16. I had a few classes with this kid who was mentally challenged. I absolutely feel for anyone with a disability. So naturally, when I saw he was having difficulty keeping up in class, I had taken it upon myself to help/tutor during class and sometimes at lunch hour. We'll call him Josh. I also have Asperger's, a mild form of autism, along with 3 of my other siblings, so I naturally can spot a person who may have some kind of social or emotional disability as well as physical. My parents also made sure we paid attention to these things for their sake of having respect for others we may not know. Anyway, for a couple of months I had been taking Josh under my wing. He had absolutely stepped up in his classes and improved his overall mood of life. This led me to meeting his father, who was very happy with how his son was improving. His father offered to pay me if I could help him graduate within the next semester. Now, I am not very smart. I don't take advanced classes or anything. I just know how to understand and explain things well enough for him to think things through. I agreed anyway, because the curriculum for the special needs in our school is set to a lower standard. Bonus is, he was in an online program that coexists with the public school for students to work at their own pace and even graduate early. He was only a couple of credits away from this, maybe 3 weeks of tutoring to go. Now, I knew Josh was in love with me. I could see it every time we made eye contact. He never pushed, never asked, just was so polite, like the gentleman he was raised to be. He cried when he graduated in the little classroom and told me I was the best friend he had always wanted and couldn't have done it without me. Of course, I cried too. I hadn't seen him since. I ended up getting pregnant and dropping out. Another story, different sub. Flash forward several years later. I am married and have 2 boys. At the time, they were 3 and 2. I had ran into Josh's dad in a gas station, and he informed me that Josh had passed recently and they were having a viewing and a reception. I was heartbroken and agreed to go. Now, I did not know Josh's mom, and I had no idea she was an entitled parent, or that they had divorced a little while after Josh graduated. So when I show up, by myself with my kids, husband had to work, this woman immediately swooped to my side and began to shower me with compliments.
Oh my goodness, you are so beautiful. Your kids are just so precious. You age so nicely,
etc. I was confused at first until she finally told me her name. I just thanked her and gave her some good compliments out of respect for her, then went and sat in a pew midway in the back a couple rows in front of Josh's mom. Throughout the whole thing, she was a busybody, talkative and chatty, just not at all behaving like you would expect her to be. I had no idea what she was so excited to gossip about or what she was even saying, but it kind of irritated me. This went on for an hour until the program was closing and everyone was headed to the reception room to eat, chat, and wait for the escort to the burial grounds. I immediately found Josh's dad, who he sat with me and my boys to eat some food provided. It was then when Josh's mom sat down without a plate next to Josh's dad, and I realized he was uncomfortable. Josh's mom.
So, when do we get to see the boys?
Me. Pardon?
The boys? When are we going to get visitation?
Pointing to my two halflings. Me. I don't understand. My kids are happy to have play dates with other kids. At this point, Josh's dad put his hand over his face, squeezing the brim of his nose, and shakes his head at me. Josh's dad. I am confused too. What are you saying? Who do you think this young lady is? At this point, me and Josh's dad are catching on to her delusion, but didn't have a clue on how to handle it. Josh's mom.
Excuse me? I am sure I have the right to see my grandchildren. After all, it's not like we have any other children to provide such things.
I was stunned. I began to sputter, trying to fight through my surprise and tell her what she needed to hear, but thank goodness Josh's dad stepped in. Josh's dad. What gave you the idea that those are your grandchildren? Josh never got married, and as far as I know, never had any kids. His face was red. I assumed from embarrassment, from revealing his son's personal info, and from this whole situation altogether. She shot straight up from her chair so aggressively it scared all of us. My youngest began to cry. She was now yelling for everyone to hear.
How absurd! I knew after you cut me off you would do anything to keep me from my son, even to go as far as keeping me from our only grandchildren. I know the both of you are only saying this to torture me.
I tried to calm her down and explain myself. Me. Look, I knew your son from high school, but after he graduated, I hadn't seen him since. We were just friends. She cut me off.
Then why would my son show me pictures and talk about how much you meant to him? He obviously married you.
Pointing at my ring.
Like he said he would, or I wouldn't be seeing my son's face over there.
Pointing again at my beautiful hobbits. At this point, both boys are crying and the whole reception was focused on our table. Josh's dad stands up, placing his hand on her shoulder, pushing her gently back. This is why I cut you off. Your son stopped talking to you because you were always pressuring him, especially with kids, when he knew he couldn't handle that sort of thing. Now you are here harassing someone you never met before to fulfill your fantasies about being a grandmother. I kid you not. This woman swings her arms in the air and spins around to make sure everyone was paying attention. Huffs and puffs like she just ran a mile, lets out a screaming growl like as if she was spat in the face.
I am calling the cops. I will have my grandbabies, even if I have to take them myself. And you,
pointing at me, so mad she is spitting as she yelled.
You are going to pay me every penny of child support I deserve. My son didn't have much, and you obviously took advantage of his disability and money.
Josh's dad. Get the heck out. I can't believe I could have thought for a second you would actually behave yourself for once. Thanks for proving me wrong. Get out. At this point, she spins around and bolts for the doors, screaming and sobbing at the same time. Josh's dad just turned to me and shook his head. I am so sorry. I don't even know what to say. I'm sorry, boys. How about we get ice cream after this, yeah? My dear Frodo and Samwise wiped their eyes and excitedly shook their heads yes. Who could say no to ice cream? But it wasn't the end. We drove over to the burial grounds, where me and Josh's dad said our condolences and spent a few moments explaining to family members what had just happened at the chapel. When then, 2 police cruisers and 3 SUVs showed up and surrounded us.
A couple sheriffs got out, and other police gradually get out and head towards us. Apparently, this woman called the police and told them that me and Josh's dad had attacked her, took her kids, and were threatening them if she didn't stay away. My mind was blown. We had to explain the whole thing, literally from high school to the present. I even had to have my husband come straight over after work to prove his identity and that the halflings indeed were his. I still keep in contact with Josh's dad, and he has since pressed charges on his ex-wife. I didn't hear from that crazy woman again, and to this day, my husband wishes he could have seen it, just because it was so bizarre. As far as I know, she moved to the other side of the states. I pray she stays there and as far away as possible. Next we've got Entitled Woman Made My Day Go From Bad to Worse, Made Me Cry at Work. This story happened yesterday, and I'm kind of over it if people stop asking me about it. I work in an arts and crafts store and have been bouncing around the department as backup for whoever needs an extra set of hands. I don't exactly look my age, so I get mistaken for younger all the time. I'm kind of short and have some acne on my face and wear a lot of black, hints at the username. The cast is me, Gothic Candy Pop. We've got Manager 1, Manager 2, we've got Entitled Woman 1 and Entitled Woman 2, the one who made my day a nightmare and who the majority of this story is about. I was working at my register as backup, and the line had gone down by a bit when two older women showed up. Another important detail that a lot of people don't know about me because I don't talk about. I have anxiety and depression and get overwhelmed easily. The other registers were full, and I called them up to take care of them. As they walked up, I was being very polite and respectful, as I am with all customers. Me. Hello, did you find everything okay? Entitled Woman.
We have gotten a frame custom to fit our puzzle picture.
Holds up frame.
And didn't know if this black poster board was yours or ours.
Holds up the poster board in question. I knew I needed a manager to help me since I didn't know what to do. Let me call my manager really quick to help. And I called my manager. While waiting, I saw the other woman put items on my register. Me. While we are waiting, would you like me to go ahead and scan these? Not knowing if they were going to do more shopping. Entitled Woman 2.
Yes, please, honey. That would be appreciated.
I go ahead and start ringing up the items, and manager had shown up to help with the customers. She was getting yelled at when she tried taking the poster board, not understanding the customer, and is getting yelled at. I was trying my best to ignore the confrontation until I got to scan a shirt with no price tag. I politely told them that one of the shirts didn't have a tag and wasn't the same size as the other 4 they had picked up when they wanted me to scan one twice. Once that problem was solved and it came time to pay was where I felt like the crap was gonna hit the fan. Entitled Woman 2.
How much is all of this?
Holding a $20 bill. Me. $25.40, ma'am. Entitled Woman 2 looks at me bewildered and grumbles to herself as she pulled out more money and sets it not in my hand, but on the demagnetizer to turn off sensors on certain objects so no one can be caught stealing. I picked up the money and I counted it out loud so I can hear myself if I'm wrong. I'll be right back, ma'am. And I walked away from my register to a scanner at the register next to mine and run the 20 through it. We do this to every bill, $10 and up, to check for counterfeit. We have to do this with everyone. Entitled Woman 2.
Are you crazy?
It took me a minute when I got back and she asked me that. I looked at her a little confused and she asked again. I gave her change and receipt and she stepped aside. I ignored it and kept taking care of 2 more customers. They paid card. No money to run through the machine. I noticed this woman still standing in front of my register and not getting in anyone's way. I thought she had forgotten something or had a question, so I addressed her. Big mistake. Me. Excuse me, are you okay, ma'am?
I was just wondering if there was something wrong with you.
Taps her head.
Are you crazy? I have been coming here for years, and not once has anyone accused me of stealing.
Me. So angry, but kept my cool, and explained calmly after being interrupted 3 times. Ma'am, we do this to everyone. It's policy now to check every bill $10 and up to avoid counterfeit. Those bills are hard to spot, so we have the machine to check. It's also a lot faster.
If I am wrong, then I am sorry. Only if I'm wrong.
She started spewing out that she was a very Christian lady and had been coming to the store for years. I was biting my tongue the whole time. When she asked if I forgave her, I wanted to say no, but to get her out and make her happy, I accepted it. When she left, Manager 2 came up to me to give me a task to do, but I had tears running down my face. I told him in private what happened and then told Manager 1 while I was trying to calm down. I also talked to Manager 1 about the encounter. I was able to be left alone and given a small task to calm down and walk around to catch my breath. Today when I got into work, I let the head manager know what happened in case she got a call about a complaint so she wouldn't be blindsided. I was numb basically the whole day and faked being happy. I'm pretty good at it from years of practice.
Give me that wheelchair. Now!
A little background on me so you understand the serious situation this whole thing put me in. About 6 years ago, I wound up with several health conditions that all interacted with one another, creating a domino effect of health problems. During the course of those 6 years, plus this current year, I have been hospitalized for no less than a week at a time, 15 times. Despite getting most of the conditions stabilized, I have a few more hurdles to overcome. Those being 1, a heart condition where my pump capacity is at 35% and requires me to get a pacemaker, plus 1 leaking valve. And due to the low pump and all my hospital stays, I've lost almost all the strength in my legs to where I toddle wobble walk with a cane. But to truly retrain my legs, I need to use a rollator, a stroller with 4 wheels and a seat. Also, my legs are so weak, I don't have the strength for the lift or push of the legs to get me upstairs, and more especially getting off the floor or ground if I fall. Once I'm down, and it takes about 2 to 3 men to help me get upright. So, one day I go to a store to grab some food and medical supplies. Won't say the store's name, but they usually wear Smurf-colored vests. I slowly toddle walk into the store, and that day I am wearing black jeans with holes, bright red suspenders to hold the pants up due to all the weight I've lost, a white short-sleeved dress shirt, and a very bright and loud red, green, and goldish colored plaid vest. I don't even make it past the security sensors when I'm suddenly grabbed from behind by a woman who looks like she's never worked a day in her life and done up to the nines, so she looks like she should be shopping at high retail stores in New York or Paris instead of this local place. I'm going to call her Snooty. I know they usually call these ladies Karen, but my bonus mom's name is Karen, and she has never treated me badly, so Snooty it is for me. Thus, the playbill for this little production is going to be me, Snooty, store security, store manager, and of course, kind of piercing together what I remember from the argument conversation. As stated, I didn't even make it past the security sensors at the building entrance when Snooty grabs me from behind by my right elbow and attempts to spin me around. I shift as best I can, rollator and all, and see this highfalutin lady with an exceptionally annoyed look on her face.
Excuse me? Did you not see me try to flag you down? How could you miss us? You walked right past me and my crippled daughter.
Her daughter isn't crippled. In fact, all she has on is a brace boot around her left ankle and foot. Me, lost in a little bit of confusion. I'm sorry. I thought you were waving at someone you knew in the parking lot. Do I know you?
No, you don't. But you should pay attention to customers when you bring in the handicapped items such as that wheelchair. I flagged you down because my daughter needs it.
Me, stammering a little. I'm sorry, but this isn't a wheelchair.
Yes, it is. This store provides them for handicapped customers, and you need to do your job and give this one to us.
That's not my job. In fact, I don't have a job. I'm in the middle of getting approved for disability.
Really? What a world. Anyone thinks they can get away with lying and excuses. Just give me the wheelchair, and I'll be nice and won't report you.
I don't work here, lady.
Yes, you do. You're wearing a vest, and this is one of the store's wheelchairs.
She places a hand on one of the bars on my rollator and grabs tightly. No, I do not work here, lady. I am a customer. I'm not wearing the right kind of vest. This item doesn't belong to the store. It's not a wheelchair, it's a rollator. And the store doesn't provide wheelchairs. They provide scooters, which are located behind you. Let go of my walker. Snooty attempts to jerk the rollator from me.
I am going to report you for being rude to customers, especially ones who are handicapped. You're not following the ADA laws. That'll get you fired for certain.
Me, pulling back on my rollator. Again, I do not work here. This doesn't belong to the store. It belongs to me. It's not a wheelchair, and your daughter isn't handicapped. She has an ankle brace on, probably meaning she just twisted or sprained her ankle. Grab her a scooter if you want, but leave me alone.
More lies, more lies. I am taking this wheelchair, and I am going straight to the head manager to have you fired.
What happens next is a tug of war, to the best of my ability, between myself and the lady with my rollator. She eventually does something kind of intelligent, and she pushes on one of my poles, which causes me to stumble backward, eventually tripping over my own feet, and kaboom! Down I go to the floor, slamming my head to the floor. I'm in a tremendous amount of pain. The room and my head is spinning. The lady is saying something to me in scolding tones, shaking her finger at me, but my head is ringing. I'm now short of breath, so I don't really hear her nor understand her. She huffs and walks away, and I was told she was slightly cursing as she was having trouble trying to push her daughter around in the wheelchair. Note, rollators are made so you can walk facing the seat. Thus, the handlebars face out away, not from behind the seat. Several minutes go by. Folks are trying to help me get up. Finally, there comes in a gentleman, and I believe his two sons, all of whom look like they could be professional linebackers, who managed to get me up and escort me to one of the benches just inside the entrance doors. Just a couple minutes more, and the store manager and a security guard come walking up to me with very stern looks on their faces. Manager: we understand you were trying to take a wheelchair from a handicapped customer and that you were, glancing up and down at me, well, obviously, attempting to pass yourself off as an employee of our store. Me: no, I was trying to come in here to buy some groceries and medical items when this woman accosted me, telling me I needed to give her my rollator. Security: well, this woman said you tried to manhandle her to take it away from her. I explained my medical conditions and how it's impossible for me to be able to manhandle anyone at the present time or foreseeable future. The man and sons who helped pick me up informed the manager and security that I had to be picked up off of the floor, that I had no leg strength as far as they could tell. After this, the manager and security look me over and then look at each other with expressions that said this needed to be looked into further. Security called for another officer to have them find the lady and her daughters and bring them up to the front of the store. When they arrive, Snooty starts right on in.
You've got the right, or should I say, the wrong, man. He needs to be fired. Now. And I have a good mind to press charges against him and the store for his assaulting me.
Manager: ma'am, I can't fire him, as he doesn't work here.
Yes, he does. He's wearing one of your vests.
Manager: you mean a vest like this? He raises up a side of the vest he's wearing. It looks nothing like our vests, ma'am. It also doesn't have our name nor our logo on it.
Well then, he tried to impersonate an employee so he could attack the disabled. I still wish to press charges.
Security: ma'am, he says this stroller is his.
This is not his wheelchair.
Me: it's not a wheelchair. If she owned it, she'd know it's not one. Also, if it was hers, why does she have my wallet and prescription list in the basket under the seat?
That shows why you're not the owner. There's no basket under the seat.
Security politely helps up the daughter out of the rollator and onto a bench seat, walks over and flips the seat up, revealing a little basket which contains my wallet and my newest list of prescriptions to order. Snooty now looks up, wide-eyed and somewhat terrified.
Security tells his partner to make sure she doesn't go anywhere. Manager and security proceed up the staircase to the manager and security offices. They are gone for about 20 minutes and then come back. Security informs Snooty that the incident was all caught on camera and proves she's the one who started everything, accosted me, and then walked off with my rollator. She starts screaming and threatening security and the manager with lawsuits and such, but is cut off when an ambulance crew arrives, followed by the local police. The ambulance crew got the gurney prepped for me with the backboard and neck brace. Not that I needed it, but with the fall, they have to make sure I'm extra stable and taken in to see if I have anything wrong with my neck, back, or a concussion. They get me loaded and I'm waiting a few minutes when the police come back from the offices and ask me what I'd like to do. I can be a forgiving guy, usually given my mood and circumstances, but I was still hurting, in utter disbelief of what this lady did, and upset beyond all feeling. I let her have it. I told the officers I wanted to press charges. I'm not sure what all happened to the lady, although I know she didn't help herself out. As I was being rolled out the doors on the gurney, I saw her break away from the police, take a defensive stance, and then she started flailing and smacking at them with her purse and arms, as well as kicking their legs with her pricey name-brand pumps. It didn't take long before they had her on the ground, and the handcuffs becoming the next bit of bling around her wrists, looking oh so plain compared to her bracelets. I didn't have to do anything. About a week later, I got a letter from the county courthouse informing me that her case was already heard, the store video, manager, and security's testimony, as well as those from a couple of other people who came forward after realizing what it was they saw when they walked past us, was more than enough to convict her. I don't know if she served time in jail or community service, but either way, I hope she got to be seen in something either bright orange or maybe an old-fashioned, low black and white striped dress. Next we've got,
Stop taking the medication that helps prevent seizures in front of my kid.
Yes, Mr. Reddit and Re-Army, the title is correct. Some context. My fiance has suffered from severe epilepsy since 8 hours old. Doctors thought it was a phase and he'll grow out of it. Took him to have a tonic cleanse seizure when he was 10 to get the right treatment and medication for it. Now, since this is out of the way, let's get to the main reason why we're here, the entitled parent. My fiance and I were in our local shopping center, just hanging out in the food court with my sister and brother-in-law, when the alarm for my fiance to take his medication went off. Please note, he needs to set an alarm in the morning and night because he tends to forget to take them unless I remind him. I pulled out the Webster package that his medication comes in to discreetly hand him the tablets. Now, Webster packs are noisy little things and would let out a loud pop like someone popping a plastic bag. This must have been when we gained the attention of the curious kid and her entitled father.
Excuse me, but can you not do that?
We all looked at the man, confusion on our faces. He must have realized that, so he added on to his demand.
Take those in front of my kid.
You mean my epilepsy medication? My fiance spoke up, sounding a little defensive. He doesn't like having to take his medication, but knows the high risks if he doesn't.
Yes.
No, my fiance replied, and proceeded to continue taking the tablets. That was when it happened. The long-awaited
How dare you speak to me that way? I asked you as nicely as possible to not take drugs. I bet you don't have epilepsy.
That was when my brother-in-law spoke up, as he witnessed him doing several seizures in the past. And how dare you judge a person for taking something that can prevent themselves from ending up in the hospital? He does have epilepsy, as we all witnessed him having seizures in the past.
Don't you speak to me, you.
He used a slur at that point.
I demand that you stop taking drugs or I'll call the police.
We all decided to just leave the food court as high, stressful situations will make my fiance have a seizure. The entitled father still going off his head at us to the point security was called and he was escorted out with his daughter.
Why should I have to leave? They're the problem of this generation. I should sue for emotional trauma.
He still continued to yell at us whilst getting escorted out. After a few minutes, the same security guards returned and apologized for not stepping in sooner, as they had another incident, different entitled parent, earlier, which resulted in the police being called. They asked if we were all okay. After a few minutes of being outside and a cigarette later, we were all ready to continue on with our shopping. Hopefully, we don't see the entitled jerk again, but knowing my luck, we might, considering our town is small. Yay. Note sarcasm. Next we've got, entitled woman kicks me out of her neighborhood. Before I was able to drive, I loved riding my Razor scooter. I also loved maps and exploring all the nooks and crannies of my town's roads. Still do, but by car now. I came across a neighborhood one time a few years ago on my scooter that had a bunch of condominiums. Every time I come to a neighborhood like that, I always look for a sign that says something like private property or do not enter or something like that. I looked and saw no such sign, so I went into the neighborhood. A lot of pedestrians were smiling and waving as I went by them. I smiled and waved back. That's when I kind of got the feeling that I was allowed to at least scooter through. I was approaching a cul-de-sac and I walked past this woman walking her dog. We'll call her entitled woman. We exchanged a few words and they went as followed.
Do you live here?
No, I'm just exploring, seeing what there is to see.
You can't do that here. This is private property, so you can only be here if you live here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
You didn't know? There's a gigantic sign right at the front. How did you not see the sign?
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Well, yeah, because there was no such sign, I wanted to say. At this point, I turn around and start to leave.
Don't you dare ride your scooter out of here. Pick it up and walk.
I did, and the moment I was out of her sight, I got back on and bolted out of there on my scooter. I briefly looked behind me when I exited the neighborhood. Yep, still no gigantic sign. If I weren't such an innocent person, I would have argued with her that there was no such sign, and after she told me to pick up my scooter instead of ride it, I would have said, no, I'm gonna ride it. What are you gonna do? A few months later, I was talking with a friend who lives in that neighborhood. The topic of her neighborhood came up in conversation. I told her about my experience with entitled woman, and my friend just responded with, we actually do allow other people here. Some people think we don't, just because we're a condo complex, but you are allowed in. I said thank you, but in my head I was like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I don't need to see Miss Condo Karen again. To this day, I don't enter any condo complex or apartment complex unless I'm invited there by a friend or relative. Next we've got self-important entitled parent I saw at Walmart. Backstory. I used to work at the Walmart in my town on overnight about a year ago I left. My wife and I still have friends who work there. You don't mess with my friends. On to the show. Last night after work, I had to go to the store for some essentials, so I figured I'd stop by to see some people, and I know where everything is. I did some shopping and talked with a bunch of people I knew. As a rule, the cash register shut down at about midnight to reset for the next day. Usually takes roughly 5 minutes. Here's the cast. We've got me. We've got T, the cashier. We've got Felicia, not real name, but Karen is overdone. As I'm standing in line for the cash out, the entitled parent of my tale is in front of me. Side note, I don't know the entitled parent personally, but I do know what she does for work. Cashier makes announcement of the registers closing for the reset. Felicia.
You're shutting down?
Cashier. Only for a few minutes to reset for the next day. Should only be about 5 minutes. Felicia yells.
This is unbelievable. How could you do this? I have places to be.
Cashier. Miss, please stop yelling. It should only be a couple minutes. Me. Hey, relax, lady. It's only going to be a few minutes. She turns on me.
Stay out of this. It don't concern you.
Actually, it does. You're yelling like a jerk at a cashier for something out of her hands. Hey, cashier, are you okay?
Shut up, you. Do you have any idea who I am?
Me, with the most hamburglar grin I can muster up. Yes, I do. You're a cashier/stalker at the Dollar General up the street from my house. I see you there all the time. Felicia looks 3 shades of red, then shuts up. Cashier, trying not to laugh. The register is open now. Felicia pays for her stuff, then power walks out of the store. And shoutouts to our regenerals of the day, Slayer, Aeroflot 101, and Bruh Moments Only. And please listen to my playlist every night when you go to sleep.